Starting here, let's focus in on this one. I'll go quicker than before, but here I see one element with 3 bonds around it, a single and a double, and one lone pair or one unshared pair. And so the number of valence electrons it had before bonding would be 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, one in each bond. So 5. And then we see how many shared pairs. That's the bonds shared, 1, 2, 3. Oops. And how many lone pairs or unshared pairs? That's the dots. That's 2 dots, but that's 1 pair, remember. 1 pair is 2. How many bonds and what kind of bonds? Kind of talked about this already, but there's 3 bonds, but they are 1 single and 1 double. So I'll put 3, and then I'm going to put 1 S for single and 1 D for double. And that's not that important, but it's just helps me to see that I really know how to count these bonds. And then what group number? Well, it's the same as this first one, right? Because it still has 5 valence electrons and 3 bonds. It's just a different pattern than what we saw before. So let me look for that pattern down here. Instead of a triple like the first one had, we see a single and a double. And they're pointing to different sides, but that doesn't matter. It's still a single and a double coming out from this atom, like here, a single and a double. So that's going to be 15 again. And so that could be nitrogen or phosphorus. I'll put nitrogen. Okay, now I see one. It looks like I have how many valence electrons? 1 in the bond, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7. How many shared pairs? For shared, I'm looking for what's reaching out. There's 1, because when we share, we reach out to someone. How many lone pairs or unshared pairs? The ones that aren't reaching out. 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pairs. So remember, there's the 6 dots is counted as 3 pairs. How many bonds are there and what kind of bonds are there? So this time I see 1 bond and it's a single bond. 1 S. So if it's 1 bond and I look down at my bond chart, I see the ones with 1 bond are over here. It's either hydrogen or group 17. And so to know which is which, I have to look for those unshared pairs. So group 17 has 7 valence electrons, 6 are unshared, and 1's in the bond. So this must be group 17. And that means that it could be that F like we saw below. Here I have an atom or a molecule, sorry, just an atom that has 4 bonds coming out of it and no dots. So how many valence electrons did it have before bonding? It had 1 in each bond. So 1, 2, 3, 4. How many shared pairs? Shared are reaching out. These are all reaching out. So 4 pairs. How many unshared or lone pairs? No dots, no unshared. They're all reaching out. They're all being shared, so 0. How many bonds are there and what kind of bonds? So I do see 4 bonds or 4 shared pairs, like we said here, and they're all single. So I'm going to say 4 single. Now I'm going to use my bond patterns to see which does this one look like. So 4 valence electrons and 4 bonds, it's one of these, right? And there it is with 4 single bonds. So that's group 14, and carbon is a good example. Let's say 14. And in the last column, it asks for an example of an element, so carbon. Last one here, I see 2 bonds and 2 unshared pairs, or 4 unshared electrons, 4 dots. And so when I'm oops, sorry, I guess I'll stay here. When I'm counting how many valence electrons, I count 1 in each bond, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6. How many did this atom have? How many shared pairs? I see 1, 2. How many lone pairs or unshared pairs? I see 1 pair here and 1 more pair here, so that's 2. And then how many bonds are there? Let's look at the lines. There's 2 bonds, but it's 1 double. I'm not as important. You won't be asked that kind of question a lot, but it helps to know that you're really solid on those bonds. So 1 double. Now I'm going to look below and see what group does this look like. And I see 4 bonds, no, 3, 2. So group 16 has 6 valence electrons and 2 bonds, and it can either do 2 singles or 1 double. So that one above looks a lot like this O here. So that would be group 16. That's O is a good example. Now for these last ones, it's the same kind of question, only you just have to zero in on what part you're looking at. So looking at the diagrams below, again, each X stands for an unknown nonmetal. Use the clues, bonds, and unshared pairs to identify the group number of the elements. So X sub 1 is group what? So let's zero in on just X sub 1, and I see it's got 4 bonds coming out from it. And do you see any unshared pairs around X1? No. So that means it has to be one that needs 4 bonds. When I look down here, 4 bonds, that would be group 14. When I see X2, this time I'm going to circle it. All of these look like the same thing. So let's just look at one of them. I see 1 single bond, and I see 3 unshared pairs or 3 lone pairs. So when I look below to see which one has 1 single bond, and that's 4 bonds, 3, 2, 1 bond, and 3 unshared pairs, that must be group 17. Remember, all of these are group 17. Hydrogen is group 1, but it doesn't have any dots. So this is group 17. Last one, XA, looking just in the middle again. What do you see around it? You see a single, single, double. Look down here for one that has 4 bonds, single, single, double. So it has to be this group, single, single, double. So it could be group 14. It's the only one it could be. Oops, forgot. You'll see that carbon ends up in the middle a lot because it can make so many bonds. I'm going to get rid of this. Now let's look at X sub B. So there's 2 of those. I'm just going to look at one at a time. It's something that has 1 bond and no dots, no unshared pairs. Let's look at our bond chart. Which one has 1 bond and no dots? Oh, must be hydrogen. Finally, XC, if I focus in on that one again, X sub C, if I look just at that, it has 2 bonds, a double, and 2 unshared pairs. So now I'm looking for one with 2 bonds, 4, 3, 2 bonds, and 2 unshared pairs. So in my picture above, you can see them both here, it looks like it's a double. So it's a lot like this one. a double and two unshared pairs. So that's group 16. Oops, keep doing that. Sorry, these are a little wonky. This should be, that didn't look right. It should be H, but that'd be group 1. I was trying to write a H, but group number would be 1. So that was this one again. All right, I hope that maybe now I'll scroll so you can see the whole thing or most of it again and check your work. Thanks.